with Audra.
Yeah, welcome to our webcast tonight. I'm Audra Winter. I'm a third-year pharmaceutical chemistry major here at Michigan Tech. I'm originally from Green Bay.
And I'm a third-year mechanical engineering major with a Spanish minor, and I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, Dearborn specifically. So it's pretty cool. Oh, we already have a question. Can you explain anything about research assistant? How is tuition integrated? Are you a grad student? Is that what you're asking about? So right now we are both in our undergraduate studies, but we can find you some information if you are a graduate student and you're looking for that research assistant position. As an undergrad, you are allowed to work as a teaching assistant, and I was actually a teaching assistant for 2 years in a course called Creating Your Success. So I got to grade papers and take attendance, write lesson plans, stuff like that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I also had a pretty good experience as an undergraduate being a teaching assistant. I TA'd for a undergraduate student chemistry lab, so that was really cool. I also worked in a research lab in biomedical engineering, even though I'm a chemist, so that's really cool, and I do research there as well.
So you can find more information about the research assistant position if you talk with a grad advisor, or you can email gradadms@mtu.edu. Alright. So you say you're in chemical major, chemical engineering? Is that what?
Me? Oh no, pharmaceutical chemistry, so not so much on the
So
engineering
what do you
side,
do?
but lots of chemistry. So a lot of research. I've been working in actually a biomedical engineering lab, so even though I'm not an engineer, I work a lot with engineers.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll go with drug research in the future. I think, yeah, that's my goal. That would be the coolest thing. What about you? Mechanical, what do you want to do?
I really enjoy engines, so that's what I got into with mechanical engineering. And I thought for sure automotive, since I grew up right around Ford.
Yeah.
So I had an internship where I actually worked with jet engines, and I thought that those were the coolest thing ever. So I've had one internship already for the company, Williams International. I'm going back this summer, and hopefully I can do that again, once I graduate.
Jet engines.
Jet engines.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, we have another question from another Katie. So,
oh boy.
Katie wants to know, what is it like being a female on a campus full of guys? Do you deal with sexism or harassment, or guys being condescending or not taking you seriously? I wouldn't say it's like a campus full of guys. I mean, there is the ratio of Michigan Tech is 3 to 1, but it's not anything I've ever had a negative experience with. It's something that you hardly notice for the most part.
Yeah.
The community sense is so strong that it's not something that I'm too concerned with.
Mm-hmm. So in the mechanical department, even though the whole campus is a 3 to 1 ratio, there's a lot more guys in the mechanical engineering department. So typically I'll have a classroom of about 80, and then I'm one of 3 girls in that class. And I don't even notice it until someone points it out, like, hey, you know you're the only girl in here right now? And so if I don't notice it when I'm in a major of mostly boys, I don't suggest that you would have any issue with that either. And up here, it is a small town feel, and everyone's super nice. And so a lot of the guys, being a girl on campus, it might be a little annoying. Your doors are always going to be open for you. You can't ever walk into a room first. You always have to go in first. They'll always open the door for you. And really great with homework help. Everyone's always willing to help you out there.
Yeah, and in terms of not being taken seriously, it's kind of a non-issue. Girls are just as good as engineering and science and everything guys have.
Yeah.
So
we have another question for you about pharmaceutical chemistry. So what kind of job do you plan and hope on getting with your pharmaceutical engineering degree?
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, I'm not an engineer, but with a pharmaceutical chemistry degree, originally I had really hoped to go to pharmacy school, which is something I still could do But right now, I'm way more interested in like, the science behind making drugs. Right now, I'm in a class called Drug Action, which is basically all the mechanisms, like how drugs work inside the body and how they're formulated, how new drugs are always being made, and it's like a 2% success rate for like new drugs being made. Like, they try so many different things, and that's what I think is really cool. So ideally, I would work probably in industry or doing research with a large company like Pfizer or AstraZeneca, something like that.
Really pretty cool.
There's a lot of options though.
What kind of biology classes are you taking for that?
Okay, the only biology class that's really required for pharmaceutical chemistry is general biology or principles of biology, I think it's called here. So that's, I think it would be equivalent to like AP biology if you're in high school. I also took anatomy and physiology in high school, and that was really helpful, beneficial for a lot of like background for some of my classes. I'm also doing a microbiology minor, so I do a lot more like cell culturing and work with that minor. But that's my personal choice because I like the lab work.
Awesome. That's really,
Yeah.
really pretty cool. All my labs are on the macro scale, so it's smushing pieces of metal together, opening up a big refrigerator and seeing if it's efficient, that kind of thing, using a grinder and a bandsaw and a drill press and that kind of thing,
It's totally different.
Totally different opposite ends
Yeah.
where you have big stuff and small stuff, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So what would you say is your favorite class at Michigan Tech?
I'm really, this semester is my first semester. I've just had, just chemistry classes.
Oh wow.
And I was really overwhelmed, oh my gosh, third year. It's going to be, it's the serious, chemistry stuff. But I'm so, happy finally to just, take those, major specific courses where I'm finally, focused on, the chemistry that I want to do. And I'm not doing, physics lab or, circuits. What? You get through it and you do it for, all your math. That's all fundamental, but it's not, what you really want to do yet.
Yeah, that was the same thing for me. I did like starting off college, but then, you're taking calculus, and for me, I only had to take one chemistry class, university chemistry. That was all the chemistry and mechanicals need to take. But then, once I got into my major specific courses, that's where I found my favorite, which was thermodynamics, and it's the flow of heat and energy in equals energy out, and it was just the coolest thing. I thought I loved it so much. That's definitely my favorite thus far. But heat transfer, I'm in that right now, and man, that's nipping at the heels of thermo.
Thermodynamics. I did a little tiny
Yeah.
baby taste in physical chemistry, and I was like, I'll leave that to the chemical engineers. That's
Yeah.
There's not any cells or people involved. Not so much for me.
Ooh, got another question coming in. What is campus like? Are students really competitive with one another?
Ooh. Okay, so campus is beautiful in terms of what it's like. As for competition, I mean competition and fun, broom ball, if you've ever toured here or looked at anything Michigan Tech, broom ball is huge and students are incredibly competitive. But it's really in a fun sense. You can play in a million different leagues for broom ball. You can play just for fun or with a women's league or off-campus league, on-campus league, and then there's playoffs. So it is really competitive, but it's for fun. In terms of classes, competition, you are striving to be the best, but it's a small enough campus that I think everybody is really high up there and high achieving.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely don't feel like anyone's trying to push me down. Sorry, I'm not going to help you with your homework because, I have to be the best in the class. But I've definitely, formed my little study groups. When you're taking those major specific courses, once you're in your third or fourth year, you've seen those same students over and over again. So you make these little groups, and it's okay, well, you're in this class with me, and this one, and this one. And then so you all work on things together. And I've had help with everything. I definitely couldn't do it by myself.
Yeah. Definitely a sense of camaraderie, with people who you're going to have classes with that you share majors and minors with. You'll want to sign up for classes. I mean, really, the people you meet pretty much your first week of school when you come in for orientation, those are going to be a lot of the same people you have classes with and live around when you're in a residence hall. So right away, you're going to make friends that you still have years later.
Yeah, I have one of my best friends. He was in my orientation team. And it's pretty funny because he was actually from right around the same area that I'm from. We grew up just 20 minutes away from each other, had no idea who we were until we came up with orientation, and then he's been in all of my classes because we have the same minor. Oh, another question. A second-year psych student mentioned she was a research assistant in a letter I received. I was just confused about what it actually was. I didn't realize it was for graduate students. I was mainly curious because I'm not sure about ideal student organizations for freshmen.
Okay. I don't know, I guess how the psychology department does their research, but you can definitely get involved with research along with graduate students, PhD students, and professors here when you're an undergrad. Definitely in the psychology department, but pretty much every department does.
Yeah,
Some kind of
undergraduate
research.
is really big.
Yeah.
You know, in your first year, you can go up to your department head and say, I want to participate in research, and you can do that. That's what a research assistant would really do, and it's really any project. You can even do a summer project and stay up here and research something that you're interested in. But student organizations, we have, 220 student organizations?
Yeah.
So you could do so many. When I was a first-year student, the first one that I signed up for was the women's club volleyball team. And so we travel around, we play volleyball every night. It's a really great opportunity. We also have really small clubs. Have you heard of pickling and preserving? We do have that. So if you're interested in pickling and preserving, we have a club for that, but there's some other ones. Are you involved in any organizations?
Yeah, the first one I really got involved with was the American Chemical Society. So because I'm a chemist, a lot of my friends are in that group. We study together, we go to conferences together, do a lot of community outreach and lab demonstrations, and travel around to see high schools and even younger middle school and elementary schools to do demonstrations too. So that was a really fun group that I got involved with. Right off the bat, it's perfect for networking in the long run too. Yeah.
All right, so Katie has a question about taking pre-calc and calculus in high school, and what you're starting off in here. We actually do have a math placement exam that we have you take once you've been accepted through the ALEX program, and it's online where you pay a nominal fee, and then you can actually take the test a couple times. If you're not happy with your score or there was some computer malfunction, you can log into it. I think you can take it 2 or 3 times, and then that will tell you, you can take that 3 times, and it'll tell you what class is best suited for you. So when I was a first-year student, I had taken AP Calc in high school, but I didn't place high enough. I passed the exam, but I didn't get any transfer credits in. And so I could have taken a test to tell me that I could skip over Calc 1 and go into Calc 2, but I really didn't want to do that. I was scared that I wasn't going to have the same foundation as all the other students. And so I decided, well, if everyone else is taking Calc, I'll be the same. That way when I take Calc 1, 2, 3, linear algebra, differential equations, and statistics, I'll be just set. So that really helped me that I got to take both. But, coming in your first year, we can definitely put you in a class that's best suited for you. And affecting your graduation time, your graduation time is wholly dependent on what kind of courses you want to take and at what pace. College is no longer 4 years and you're going to graduate. Some people take a long time, some people do it a little bit shorter. So I'm actually graduating in 3.5 years. But I took summer classes, and I took a placement test for my Spanish class that got rid of my humanities credits I had to take. So I'm definitely an anomaly to finish a ME degree with a Spanish minor in 3.5 years, but some people take off summers to take some more classes. Some people do co-ops during a semester. So you could potentially graduate in 5 or 6 years, and you are just fine. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Yeah, and taking classes in the summer is really common. It's really nice to stay here. In the summer, I did that last summer.
Oh yeah,
class, yeah.
Because there's no snow.
There's no snow. Yeah, it's really nice, really temperate summer. I also got PhD research, so that's nice.
Okay, so we are getting some more questions in. What are learning communities like? Did you live in a learning community?
I did not.
Okay, I did.
Okay.
I lived in 2. My
Nice.
very first year, I got to be in the pioneer group of the Women in Engineering Learning Community. So that was a hall of all girls, and we were engineering majors. And so that was really cool that, I lived next to a chemical engineer, and then I was mechanical, and then we had environmental down the hall, and I thought that was really cool that we got to, interact with each other. But then in a learning community, the academics are held a little bit higher, and they do want to make sure, your resident assistant will say, this was our cumulative GPA for everybody, let's try and pick it up next semester or something like that. And, everyone understands when it's time to study, it's time to study. But I also lived in the Summit Learning Community, which actually happens to share the same hall as the Women in Engineering. And they're the healthy living, outdoorsy kind of people, so we did a lot of trips. And we went hiking everywhere, and we had a lot of great times in there. And so, again, when it's time to study, it's time to study. But, we'll work together. Even a tutor came in once or twice throughout the year to help us out. But I'm sure other halls are like that too. We're not a huge state school, so when it is time to study, it's time to study.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different learning communities that you can be in. So, there's Women in Engineering, there's first year experience is good, so you really get really close with a lot of first years, and where everybody's new, so that's a good place to network with people for sure. That's a really big call for incoming students, but you can also do stuff major specific.
Yeah, there's one for music, there's one for leadership, computer science is one, so those are really awesome. We have another question from Hal. How much can people expect to make from work study? So we do have some statistics on that. So I don't know if you're in Michigan or not, but Michigan's minimum wage is $7.40 an hour. And then our work study students work about 10 hours per week. And that definitely depends on how much you work is how much that you'll get paid. So it's wholly dependent on that. There's also other ways that you can work on campus. It's not necessarily just work study. So the two of us actually work as tour guides. So that's something that you can do as a student here. But I've actually held 4 other positions on campus.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities. Yeah, I've been a TA, a grader for classes. Once you take a few classes, then you grade for other ones. But there's also all the dining halls are staffed at least by some students at cafes on campus. So all have student workers.
Yeah.
All over.
So I also was a teaching assistant. I'm a telecounselor, so if any of you have gotten a call from someone asking if you're interested in Michigan Tech, that was someone like me to see if I can answer any questions for you. Then we're both tour guides, and I even worked in our Cocoa Shack.
Oh, yeah,
and so you mentioned broom ball, and so since that's so big, we actually have a little shack right in the middle of the broom ball courts outside, and they give out free cocoa with as many marshmallows as you want. Even though the cocoa's free, it's not free work staff there, so I got to be paid to hand out free cocoa, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, or you can be a ref for was it rink maintenance for broom ball? So that's a cool job.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, so Allison has a question about the dorms. What are they like? Which one's the best?
Oh, okay. People always ask this, and it really depends on who you ask. Residence halls are all really similar. They have, similar in what they offer, but they're all kind of unique to themselves. Wadsworth is our largest, and that has about 1,000 students that live there. It's really a nice, modern style. Did you live in it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I lived in McNair. Okay. He's just said that.
Yeah.
McNair, that's the middle-sized hall. There's an east wing and a west wing. They're connected by a dining hall. And then Douglas Houghton Hall, that's our smallest, where about 300 students live. All the rooms are similar in terms of square footage, but they might vary between ceiling height. Some of them have wardrobes, some of them have closets. But really the overall feel of each building is really what makes it unique. And everybody who lives wherever you get put or wherever you choose is really where you're going to be.
It's funny turning to your favorite, because my favorite is McNair, but I only lived in McNair, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But it's by far my favorite for just because I lived there.
Right. I lived in West McNair when I was on campus for 2 years. I lived in the same room for 2 years with the same roommate. So I really liked it.
Yeah. So you can expect in your room to have a bed that you can bunk or you can loft or drop down to the floor. You'll have a desk. Yeah, you'll have a desk, you'll have a dresser, and then if you live in Wadsworth or McNair, you'll have if you live in Douglas Houghton Hall or McNair, you'll have a closet, but then over in Wadsworth, you'll have a wardrobe. So it's definitely based on preference.
Yeah, there's pictures online that you can look at too of the rooms and what they're like, so you can kind of get a feel, but it's a good thing to come to Tech and come for a tour and see what it's like, but I guarantee you, wherever you end up, you'll probably like it, so.
All right, so a little bit more about women in engineering. Yeah, it's a great one that you can join. So staying in a learning community throughout all of college, that is a possibility. However, women in engineering is only first year hall, so only first year women can join that. That's why then, after my first year, I moved over to the Summit Learning Community. First year experience is the same way, but different learning communities, so the computer science learning community, Summit, the leadership hall, you can do those however long you want to stay on campus. First year students are required to live on campus for at least 1 year, and then based on any scholarships that you might get, you might have to live on campus for 2 years. And then, so that's what I had to do, but then I grew so accustomed to being so close to campus and doing that sort of thing, I decided to live on campus housing again, and I live in Hillside Place right now, because I like not having to pay for utilities.
Yeah, that's a really nice, like, the on-campus apartment housing is really nice, so definitely something to look into.
Yeah.
If you want to stay with the learning community though, you could also consider becoming like a resident assistant or a community coordinator or something like that. Then you would like lead the community, so that's another option if you really want to stay involved.
Alright, so Katie would like to know what our favorite and least favorite thing about Michigan Tech is. So I'll let you go first with your favorite.
Alright, my favorite. My favorite thing about Michigan Tech is probably the community. Like when I'm here, I really feel like I'm so supported, like in going to school, like anything that I want to do, especially now that I'm like in my third year, I really know like where to go to like ask questions and who to ask. And if I don't know, I know who knows like where I should go. So like you figure it out, and people are so helpful. Like even if somebody you ask doesn't know the answer to your question or can't directly help you, they're gonna know somebody who knows how to help you. So
We're all connected.
it's all about making those connections and like, you know, just stepping on your shell just a little bit to like take the first step. But everybody's really supportive. So that's my favorite thing, is the community.
My favorite thing is very similar to hers, but mine is that we have a small campus with a big campus opportunity. So small campus, you know, it's a 10-minute walk end to end. But not only is it small just in size, but it's small and hometown-like. My teachers know me by my first name. They know exactly who I am. And my thermodynamics teacher, you know, I haven't had the class for almost 2 years now. Still knows who I am, knows where I was from, knows that I had an internship in Walt Lake doing jet engine stuff. Like, I think it was so cool that, you know, I have those connections and they're like, oh, so when are you graduating? And, you know, I can walk through campus and my teachers will come up to me and say hi. It's not like I'm accidentally running into them and they're like, oh yeah, hi, like you may have been in my class. They know exactly who I am, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's so friendly. So, and that's really because like Houghton is such a friendly place. It's a small town. But then, I don't know, it's hard to say like your least favorite thing, but I would say like Houghton is very far away from a lot of other places. So for me, I'm only from Green Bay, so it's only 4 hours to go home. But I'm still, you know, 4 hours away from my family, and that's kind of a bummer. But a lot of students who are from downstate, that's like 10, maybe 12 hours.
I'm 10.5 hours away.
Yeah, so
it's a long drive.
That's a hard thing, not just for me, but for a lot of students is, you know, you don't get to see your family so much, and that's really a hard thing. Sometimes your first year.
I'd say my least favorite thing, you know, it's always really hard, and, you know, I'm going to throw out what I like to say all the time because everyone says it doesn't count, but for one, I'm not a winter person, so, you know, I really can't pick up and move to school. So I'm going to weed out that being my least favorite thing, but mine would be the stigma that comes with Michigan Tech being an all-boys college. I don't like that, you know, people always ask me what is it like being a girl? Because I don't notice it until someone asks me. I don't like that people, you know, try and tease me like, oh, you're probably just up there just so you can meet boys. No, it's a great engineering school, and that's why I chose it. You know, we have all sorts of, you know, different opportunities, but I really like the school. That's why I came here. So, you know, the stigma that, oh, you're the only girl there. No, there's lots of girls. Look, there's 2 right here.
Have you met the other one?
Yeah. I read the other one. But, you know, but really, even though that's my least favorite thing, it's something that I don't deal with on a daily basis. I really don't think about it until someone asks me, you know, come up with something you don't like.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it kind of sounds canned, but really, I love everything about Michigan Tech. I have more questions.
Oh my gosh, they're piling up.
I know. Okay, so how do you handle being so far from home?
Okay. Well, a nice thing is that you always have breaks. So, like Thanksgiving break, we get a whole week. So, even if you're driving 9 hours or whatever, you can go home all the way and see your family for a whole week. So that's wonderful. And of course, there's winter break and summer is long as well. You can always like Skype with your family. There's like family visit weekend, I think in October.
Yeah.
I think, and lots of alumni and people come up for like homecoming, winter carnival. So it's not like you're lonely or need to feel lonely or anything. But you know, everybody gets homesick every once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's one way you can be able to stay in touch.
Yeah, and I know everyone has internet access up here,
Right.
so you can always email your family, you can Skype with them. Most people have cell phones, or there's even phones that you can use in the residence hall to call home, so you're going to be connected. So I'm a little bit further away from home, 9.5 hours does seem like a long time, but that drive gets shorter and shorter every time that I do it.
Yep.
So that's really nice. But, I feel like with those breaks, since they are a little bit longer than some other schools, I feel like they're more meaningful that way. My sister is a little bit closer to home, and she'll go home like every other weekend. And it's like, you know what, you just, saw them, you didn't have enough time to miss them. But, when I come home, then it's like, okay, now I get to see all my family, it's really nice, and I like it a lot. I haven't gotten homesick. I don't know, I'm a weird person, I was the oldest in the family, and I was ready to get out and go to college, so that's how I feel. Awesome. We have an internship question. How do you get an internship? Are they hard to get?
I guess go ahead on this. I have an internship actually for the summer. It's in Grand Rapids, so I'll be working with family. Yeah, I just got my housing from them just today. So I actually got this internship this fall, and that was pretty much through the career fair this fall. Because my minor is in microbiology, they were looking for people interested in that field. So now I kind of had to get in, and I talked to them about it, and I went to their booth, and I had an interview here. And then I flew down to Grand Rapids, and I did an interview there, stayed, toured their facility. So then I heard a couple weeks later, they were like, we'd like to hire you for the summer. So I was thrilled, and now there's been a lot of different steps before you get there, and that was in October, and I'll be there in May. So it seems like a long time, but it's been a good process, and I don't know, it just makes me really excited, and it kind of get up for school and keeps you motivated. It's not hard, I wouldn't say. I think if you are driven in your studies and you really keep an eye out, you stay involved, and you talk to people, you're gonna hear things. And if you check your email and you go to the career fair, put yourself out there, you're definitely gonna have opportunities. If you seek it out, they're out there. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. So for the career fair, we do have 2 each year, and the fall career fair is a little bit bigger. Over 200 companies this past fall came up to recruit our students, so I think that's really cool. They made the trek all the way up here. There's really not a whole lot around us. We are quite the destination. So, they came up to recruit. My internship, I actually got outside of the career fair. It was just a company that I had known about growing up. My dad had worked with them through his company. He did some consulting for them. So I knew of Williams International. That's where I was working. And so I just went on their website and I applied, and they called me and they're like, oh yeah, let's do an interview. I said, okay, cool, let's do an interview. And so I ended up getting that internship, and then when I left there, they're like, so would you want to come back next summer? Yeah, I want to come back next summer. So then when I got back in the fall, they were like, okay, so yeah, we kind of really do want you again this summer. So then I got to accept that again. But you can definitely get an internship your first year.
For sure.
I waited because I wanted to take some summer classes, but
yeah, there's no pressure or whatever, but Michigan Tech, the career services, they're so helpful with preparing you for interviews and going to the career fair. So there's no need to be scared or intimidated. I think it's hard. Just have to take a step.
okay, got a nice
Another
question from
question.
Hal. Okay, I'm in the Lansing area, so there are large colleges nearby. I've heard a lot about professors from colleges often being very self-involved, and many with such strong accents that it can complicate classes. Do you feel like this is a common issue at Michigan Tech?
I do not think that this is a common issue. It's certainly something that could happen. Some professors, you don't jive with, other people love them, and then you take the class and you're like, I don't get it. Or whatever, sometimes it just isn't the right mix, and that's definitely happened to me. Sometimes it's hard enough to learn calculus when your professor's English isn't the greatest. So there are other resources that you can go to like the Math Learning Center. You can, hook up with a tutor there, do like an appointment or something. So I didn't fall behind or anything like that, but it does happen. You have to make the best of it.
Yeah, we do have international teachers, but a lot of them, they're not usually like coming straight from there, don't think that they have an accent. All of my teachers have been fully aware that they have an accent, and then they say, if you don't understand me, let me know. I've heard of one teacher, I didn't have him, but my friend did, and he made sure to write down everything because he didn't want anything to get lost in translation. So he's like, I'm just going to write everything down for you, which is really helpful. And if you're coming from somewhere that's not as diverse, so growing up in Dearborn, I had quite a bit of diversity down there, so I was pretty aware of different accents and how to deal with them. But if people around you don't have accents, it's just something that you can get accustomed to. So I hadn't been too familiar with an Indian accent, but when I had an Indian teacher, all I had to do was look at him to make myself focus, and then I understood him no problem. By the end of the year, there was nothing wrong. You can nitpick at people like, oh, he said something a little bit weird, but we all kind of do that, don't we? Even if we do speak English. Exactly.
Yeah, and just go talk to them, like in their office hours if you can't understand. So talk to them one-on-one.
Awesome. So Sam has a question about housing. I recently submitted my housing application and chose Douglas Houghton Hall because of the small size and homey atmosphere. It quite is.
It's very nice.
Are there any negative aspects about this residence hall that would convince me to go elsewhere?
If you ask the people that live in Douglas Houghton Hall, they're going to be like, you're never going to want to move anywhere else. Like, when you move in there, everyone's going to be like so friendly. Like the returning students that live there are so, like it's such a small hall that it's, like everyone knows everyone, so they're very close and it's such a good community. So I don't think you would want to move anywhere else, unless you like really want to be like in the center of all the action on campus. Wadsworth is our largest, and that's where the most people are like coming and going. But it seems like you like the small size and you like that it's homey, and that's perfectly what BHA is.
That's how everyone
I think you
describes
nailed it. Yeah.
Exactly. Ooh, more questions. Okay. All right. Are most or practically of the employers at the career fair from Michigan? I would say there's a very good mix. So one of my friends was actually down in an interview for Schlumberger down in Texas. And so you'll have people from Michigan, Minnesota, Polaris comes and they're from Minnesota. We have people, all across the country. I talked to a company from Boston and they're like, hey, you want to work in Boston? I was like, oh, it's a little far from home. But we have a lot of different people come up, and my favorite thing about the career fair is the alumni that come up.
Yeah.
So all the companies, they hear about us because they've already hired a Michigan Tech grad. And so they decide, you're from Michigan Tech, we already like you, how do we find more of you? And they're like, oh, go to our career fair. So then they end up having the representative, someone that graduated from Michigan Tech, and I always like talking to them, and they're like, oh, so, did you have this teacher, how's this going?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. The alumni come up, and they love coming back to campus, and they're like, oh, I get to check out all my favorite places, and it's a really great time.
Yeah, those are perfect people to like network with and bond with. A lot of companies that do have like a base in Michigan, so those might be the people that come up here. They do have branches elsewhere. Like the company I'm working for is based in Michigan, but they also have a California branch. So if I wanted to work up there or have an opportunity in the future in California maybe, that's an option.
It's nice and warm there.
Yeah.
All right, Katie's got a question. Are there a lot of resources at Tech for people who struggle with math?
I mean, just because a lot of our students here are STEM and a lot of engineers, math is hard, and and everybody's in it together. A lot of people have to take, calculus and differential equations and their algebra, all of that. So the Math Learning Center is really wonderful. It's in the same building as where you're going to have a lot of your math courses, so you can walk right in there and just be like, help me with problem 5. Or you can set up like an appointment. You can do this like anytime in the semester, walk in and say, I want to come in every week at this time, meet with whoever or a specific coach. You can bring your friends to a group meeting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities for tutoring, and you can always go to your professor. And they're gonna understand, but calculus isn't your favorite, but to be an engineer, you gotta get through it, so
Oh, yeah, for
they
sure.
know.
And with that, so we mentioned the Math Learning Center. There's learning centers all throughout the campus. There's one for every department, so you can always go and get questions, and they're always staffed by student coaches. So that's really nice. If you're intimidated going to the teacher or the teaching assistant, you have that peer's voice that, they've already taken the class so that they can, help you out with homework, quizzes, what's the final like, that sort of thing. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, even just like your fellow students, upperclassmen, whatever, they're gonna be like happy to help you and be like, oh, I have this book, or they'll help you, or like, oh, I had that same professor, look here, do this, and like, camaraderie.
And so Allison's got a question. I'm in band in high school. Is there any way I can stay involved at Tech?
Definitely. Yeah, it depends, what kind of like involvement you want to continue with. If you've ever been to any like Huskies athletic events, our pep band is pretty legendary, I would say.
Yeah.
They're very active. They're so fun. They've got their own accordion section. You can play the kazoo. So anything, bagpipes, yeah. So they're really awesome. There's also like a jazz band, UNL Symphony Orchestra, which is like the community as well as the university combined. So there's a lot of different opportunities in music, also visual and performing arts. So if you're looking to extend your band experience, you can even take it for credit. So
Yeah. And just music in general, we even have a choir that you can be a part of. So, a lot of people think we're just, math, science, engineering, that's all we do. But don't forget about the visual and performing arts. We're pretty good at that too. You should definitely look up some videos of our pep band because they wear crazy stripes and they all have different hats and they pretty much only take their music seriously. Everything else, someone has a flaming trombone, right? Someone has a flaming trombone. So it's pretty cool how they do that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to get involved in genre.
Ooh, how much does it cost to use the ski hill? You want me to take this?
It costs nothing.
It costs nothing.
So
we have Mount Ripley, so it's a ski hill that's over in Hancock, and it's a Michigan Tech ski hill, so your lift pass is free to students. If you don't have your own gear, you are going to have to rent it, and that's at a nominal cost. It's pretty cheap to rent all that stuff. And so through your experience Tech Fee, you get to ski, you get to play golf, you get to use student development complex, you get to go to all the varsity games. It's not like some school they have to buy specific football passes or hockey tickets. You can just go to whatever you want to go to. And you can go to anything that we put on in the Rosé. If we put on the show, then it's free, but if we bring in talent, it's much cheaper than, just regular tickets. So I think that's a really good cost.
Oh, question from Hal about snow. So with as much snowfall as MTU gets, does it get rough to get to class in the heart of winter? We do get a lot of snow, but it's pretty much a 24/7 job for like snow removal here between Halloween, maybe even before, all the way to graduation. They're always out there plowing, they're putting on sand and salt, so you can definitely commute. I mean, wear your boots for sure, but you can definitely get around. Now that I live off campus, I walk to school pretty much every day, so it's been no problem. And once you're on campus, it's always pretty well plowed. You try to keep up. You work hard, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. And for those days where it's pretty dusty and it's pretty bad, for people like me that don't like winter going outside, you can actually sneak through 3 buildings on each side of campus that are actually connected. So I can walk through, boom, 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 not have to go outside. It's the coolest thing ever. Well, I think it is because I don't like it being cold. But, people who like snow, they'll trek out there, but they keep the pathways pretty clear so you don't have to walk inside. It's just a nice little convenience.
Possibly, yeah. But it's only about like 10 minutes to walk from like the far ends of our lower campus where you're going to have classes. So even if you have to walk from end to end, you're only going to be outside in elements maybe 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
Not too far.
Not too far at all. Do I need my own computer? Should I get a laptop? So we do have computers for our students to use. They're all located mainly in our library. It's the central computing hub of campus. And they have all the software that you could possibly need for any of your classes. So they have the solid modeling software, they have all the coding languages, they have Microsoft Office, and we have both Macs and PCs. so that's really nice. I do have my own laptop, but it's definitely not necessary because I can just stay down on campus all the time. It's just convenient for me if I don't want to leave my room, and there's nothing that you absolutely need as long as you're comfortable with it. Basically, my laptop, all it does is surf the internet, check for homework assignments online, and use like Microsoft Word. But it's mainly a Netflix laptop. I don't know. I don't know about you. What do you have?
I have a Mac. A lot of engineers prefer PCs, but it's really a personal choice. You can do either. You can find software that's compatible either way. It's really your own choice. If you want to have one, what type you want to have, there's nothing that's required. You can get a desktop for your gaming if you really need that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's whatever you want to bring, whatever you want to bring.
Yep. As long as you're comfortable.
Mhm.
Okay. So we have another question. No question's an odd question. So difficult to get an internship if your appearance is not as conservative as desired. Example, have piercings. Okay, well, for what you can't tell in this video, but I actually have gauged ears. So my earrings are a little bit bigger than most people have. So I have my gauges, I have regular piercings, and then I have cartilage piercing up here. So I have a little bit more. I don't think they really look at your appearance as long as if you're dressed professionally, if you're respectful, and really just personable. They really want someone that it's really easy to talk to. Whenever you go up and talk to these representatives, they just want a conversation with you. You hand them your resume. They know all of your stats. You don't have to, recite all that. They want to make sure that they can work with someone that is pleasant and they can talk to. And so, one of my friends had like blue tips in her hair when she got her internship, just fine. I wouldn't suggest going crazy or anything because it is a professional setting, but subtle things like that, I would say it's just fine.
Yeah, like Katie said, as long as you're like an interesting person, nobody's looking to hire a robot, so there is no like cutout thing that they're looking for. Use your own choice. It's up to you. Do you want to be hired by somebody who's gonna judge you as an employer based on what you look like? That's how some people judge things, but is that who you want to work for? That's another thing to consider. My first year, one of my friends went to career fair with a pink mohawk, so people remember him, that's for sure. I don't know if he got any jobs, but he got a lot of callbacks and interviews because people are like, you were that guy, so maybe it's an advantage, I don't know. It can be done.
Oh, yeah. Alright, so we have another question. Can I have a car on campus to go home during break? If I don't have a car, is there a bus or anything or any other way to get home? There are lots of ways to get home. So I didn't have a car on campus my first year, but first year students are more than welcome to have a car on campus. Anyone can have a car. So since I didn't have a car, and obviously I'm not from right around the block, I got home from sharing rides. We have a ride board, and students post on there like, hey, I'm going down to Detroit. I can drop you off anywhere down 75. And same for people in Wisconsin and Minnesota. It's really awesome. We do have a bus. Granted, it does take a really long time to get down places. So for me, it's like a 24-hour bus ride.
It makes many stops. So
lots of stops. So
you'll go where you're looking to go if you're around Michigan. I think they do a pretty big tour.
But you get a lot of naps in, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of reading time.
Yeah, and there's actually an airport up here fairly close, over in Hancock, and they do 2 flights a day, like 6 a.m., 6 p.m., something like that, and it flies just right down to Chicago. So if you're from the Chicago area, great for you. If you're from the Michigan area, you would fly to Chicago and then over to Detroit. We also have an airport, if your friends are willing to drive you over to Marquette, over in Marquette about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and that will fly directly to Detroit. And so you have those types of options, so that's pretty awesome. I like sharing rides. You split gas, that way it's nice and cheap.
Yeah, people are always looking for riders, so if you don't have a car, it's pretty easy to find people going to your general location.
Oh, for sure, most definitely. And even around campus, getting around, so like we said, it's a pretty small campus, so you're pretty much walking in class. If you want to go over to the ski hill or Walmart, we actually have a bus that takes people over there, like a shuttle. And then we also have Zipcar, which is a car rental service through the university, and so you can actually rent a car for like a couple hours at a time. I did that my first year. I took it over to Walmart, so it was like an hour at a time. It was only like $8 to do that, and I thought that was pretty cool. It was a brand new Ford Focus, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. Like, touching all the different buttons, and it was really pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a really convenient thing. People go though to Walmart, like if you live in the residence halls and you need like a ride quick to somewhere and you need to pick up some things, it's easy to just be like, hey, I need a ride.
Yeah, I need a ride.
So people are definitely giving each other a ride.
Alright, so questions about the library. Never seen a campus library before, so how do you feel about the library at Michigan Tech?
Oh, man. The library's like, now there's like, IT just put in like hundreds of brand new computers just this year.
Yeah.
So it's like a huge hub right now, and I mean, it always kind of is, you know, a place to go and study, you can sit quietly. It's a perfect spot to go if you're meeting with a group. There's like glass-sided study rooms that you can check out, so you just go online, you can check them out for up to 4 hours a day. And you just go to the main desk and pick up the key, and then it's yours. You can go in there and use. All of them have whiteboards, some of them have televisions, so you can like hook up your laptop and practice the presentation. Some of them have, you know, projectors and stuff like that. There's, you know, quiet areas. The third floor is strictly quiet. That's where our main collection of books is. Then there's like more group study areas where it's not strictly quiet. You can work together. And it's very sunny. It's a very open place. It's one of my favorite buildings because it's very
cool.
It's very modern and like up to date. It's very open and inviting.
Yeah.
It's a good place to just stop. And there's a coffee shop in there, so you can get some Starbucks.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty cool.
it's a good place to go to.
Yeah, before I came to college, what I thought was really cool about college campuses and their libraries, because I always saw them in movies, but they're the bookshelves that move. And so we do have those moving bookshelves. I know growing up it was like going to U of M, Dearborn's library, and it's like, ooh, the moving bookshelves. So we do have those, little fun fact. But, you know, so we do have books. A lot of the information is stored on computers, so we have that too.
Yeah, huge internet collections.
What is the one thing I should have when I move to campus? Is there anything I shouldn't bring? A really good winter coat.
Yeah, and boots and hats and mittens and a scarf. Like
Yes,
just
you want
have
winter wear.
those because you're gonna need them.
Yeah.
Sooner than you think. Don't think like, oh, I'll just get it when I come down for winter break. Like you're gonna need it before that. I promise.
You'll need it like
yeah. At least if you don't wear it before then. And then one thing you should not bring. I ended up buying a printer this summer before my first year of school. It was like a deal that came with my computer when I bought it, so I bought it. But then once I came up here, I didn't really use it. I think like the same ink that I like bought for it the first time I used it is still in there because printing is free on campus. So I just print, you know, as much as I want in black and white on campus. It's really easy. You can print from your laptop and print to the school printers. You don't have to like do anything fancy with it. It's easy.
Yeah. I do have a printer, and again, I bought it my first year, and it was really helpful because at that time we hadn't, you know, updated the computer systems and the printers, so I used it a lot for the scanning function and, you know, scanning things in. But now the printers that we have are really cool because it's a scanned email function they have, so you can just, you know, scan whatever and it's magically in your email. So I think that's really cool. But for things that you shouldn't bring to campus, there is a list on the housing website on things that like should not be in your rooms, for example, so like candles and things like that. So, yeah, you can bring a coffee maker, you just can't use it in your room, so you can hook it up in the kitchenette. If you want, there's a kitchenette in all the residence halls, so you can use it in there, not in your room. We don't want any open heat sources for fire reasons, so probably check that out. Let's see. What does Michigan Tech have to offer as far as study abroad? Is it possible to get classes done during the summer by doing that? Of course. So study abroad isn't necessarily the same as in high school where you're just going to learn a foreign language. That's definitely one of our options, and you can get an international minor doing that. But we do have universities abroad that speak English, so you don't have to worry about, you know, learning your classes in a different language. But you can get your courses done. Whatever you take is going to be put back on your transcript and count towards your degree. Also, you can use your financial aid and apply that to the courses that you take. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it makes it actually affordable. I think people think that it's really expensive expensive to go and study abroad, and like, while, you know, there are a few more expenses with the travel and stuff, your financial aid does cover, you know, a lot of those things where your housing and your courses that you're going to take, and that's, you know, a cool opportunity to take different classes that might not be offered here, that you can take while you're abroad, and, you know, of course, travel, and it's awesome on your resume, and it's a good experience. Yeah.
I think the international minor students, so one of my friends that got an international minor in Spanish, she took a dance class, and that counted towards her minor, which was pretty cool. She's like, yeah, I learned how to dance in Spain. I'm like, oh, that is the coolest thing.
Pretty much. And it counted.
And it counted, yeah, of course. What is the hardest thing you've encountered while being a student at Tech?
Ooh, that's a toughie.
I have to
That's a
think
question.
about that for a second.
I think one of the hardest things for me was the transition from, you know, high school going into your first year of college. It's a totally different, like, style of learning. It's, you know, a little bit in class, you're going to learn your basics, but then, you know, probably 80-90% of the work that you need to do is done outside of the classroom. And, you know, you can get help and do a lot of things, but it's so much more independent, and budgeting out your time is huge. Nobody's going to be on your back like, hey, do your homework, or like, this stuff is due tomorrow. You're the one who's in charge of it, and that was a hard thing for me, even though I thought, like, I'm a responsible student, but it's, you know, to take it upon yourself is like a whole other thing. And it just takes practice, and every semester I'm like, I'm going to stay on top of my readings, and it's, you fall behind, but then you catch back up, and I'm getting better.
Yeah. My hardest thing was definitely realizing that I have to study.
Yeah.
I never studied in high school very much. I really did not like it. I was one of those, yeah, I'll just look over stuff. You know, even though I should have been studying since I was taking AP classes, but I really don't like reading anything. You know, I wonder how I ended up being an engineer. But, so I don't like reading, so, you know, it is required that you're reading some material before class so you have some idea of what's being covered, and then you can ask, you know, pointed questions and really get the most out of having the teacher in front of you for only 50 minutes. And so I had to be accustomed to reading, and that's something that I'm still working on, and I'm graduating in a semester, so I should probably figure that out before I go into the real world.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we don't have any questions right now, so let's see, what would you like to talk about?
Well, we've only got 10 more minutes, so if you have any more questions, please send them in. So we've got a little bit of time left. I don't know, we talked about a lot of stuff, like on-campus life and activities and school, professors, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Even the snow, people always ask about.
I know.
What's
We've
it
had
like?
like, what, 280 inches this year so far, I think?
It's more than that.
Ooh. What is orientation all about?
All right, this is, oh, I like this question.
I like orientation.
Me too. I'm actually an orientation team leader this coming year.
Oh, I've already done it.
Oh, and I did it last year too. So, we have so much experience with orientation. It's actually like one of the most, I think, exciting times at Michigan Tech when all the first year students come up and they move in.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of like volunteers basically here. All of the like housing staff will help you move in, and orientation team leaders. And then all of the students get split up kind of like by their major for the most part into a group. What would you say, like 20 or so students in a group. It can vary. You know, some are a little bit bigger, some are, my group last year was as small as 7. So it depends on your major. And then you kind of stay with that group. You'll do a lot of different like information sessions, and a lot of like, I don't know, get to know you things on campus, like finding buildings, a lot of the basics about where to go, what to do. So orientation is the perfect time to like get to know, you know, like what's going on. You're in a totally new place.
Yeah.
Before classes even start, before most other students are moving up, but yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. You know, like I said, I have a friend up here that I met during orientation, and you learn all about the campus. You know what all the buildings are. You know, you saw the map, but you know that person does. You want to look like you know what you're doing. So orientation really helps you do that. Okay, we have one more question. What are some of the most stressful projects either of you have done during your classes? So my most stressful come from lab reports. And so lab reports are, you know, a lot of our classes are hands-on with a lab. You'll have a lecture, but a lab as well. So in the mechanical department, I'm already in my 4th mechanical department lab, but like 7th lab overall that I've taken. And so, you know, you work on your lab and you learn all about that, and then a week later you should have turned in a lab report of like a minimum of 8 pages. This year they're holding us to a maximum of 8 pages, so it's a lot, but you go through all the different processes and, you know, really analyzing the things. That's what's most stressful for me. Mostly because I procrastinate and I wait till Sunday to do it, and it's due at 8 a.m. on Monday. But I guess it's self-imposed stress.
Everybody does lab reports. Like if you're in a STEM field, you're going to be doing lab work and writing lab reports. As a chemist, I write 2 or 3 lab reports a week. So
yeah, lab reports are big.
they're huge. You're going to do a lot of them if you're in labs. My most stressful project is probably anything that you have to like present like in front of the class or whatever. I just like getting in front of people. That's, you know, it can be stressful, public speaking, but for me, like doing a presentation, I want to like nail it the first time, and there's no like second chance, you know, to like do it again. So
Right.
yeah, that's always stressful for me.
All right. So do you feel like the gender ratio is an issue then? Being a guy, it was a concern to a degree.
I guess from a guy's point of view, that might be a little bit different. You come up here and you think there's no girls, whereas girls are like there's too many guys. So I mean, there are girls here. That's not really an issue. Like we said before, it's not something that we really notice. I hope that it's not something like guys really notice, like there's no women here. Because there certainly are. And there's a lot of clubs and different majors, like things that you can get involved in where you're going to meet other people, including girls. So
They did have an event last year about meeting girls and like what to do on dates for these boys that act like they have no one to choose from and like whatever else. But just a reminder, you are here to go to school, so I guess that's why I don't notice it. Because I'm like, well, I'm really not looking for anyone, so you know, I'm working on my homework. You know, why does it matter if all the boys are around me or anything like that? So there are girls around here, so there are people to choose from, but it's really not an issue, I don't think. But,
yeah.
okay. And so our last question, how much homework would you say you do a day? Is it a reasonable amount, or do you feel like you never get a break to do fun things around campus?
All right. I think this is something that varies so much from day to day. So some days I feel like I'm in the computer lab from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and I'm just in there working on stuff in between going to classes, getting things done. But usually I try to give myself like time at the end of the day to relax. And it's like important. Even my like academic advisors have always told me like, you know, don't like overbook yourself. They're really, you know, that's why they put a cap on how many courses you can take. So you do have time to do fun things and you're not too overwhelmed. If you wanted to, you could do readings and homework all day long. But like I said earlier, it's about that like budgeting your own time to make sure you get things done. Of course, yeah. Being independent is hard.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have so many clubs and organizations if no one went to them. So there's obviously time that you guys can go out and have fun. You know, I'm part of a club volleyball team. Both of us are able to work and do school at the same time. So if I didn't work, I'd have more free time and I could do more clubs or, you know, whatever else. You know, and I'm taking, 17 credits this semester, so I'm pretty full, but I have plenty of time to work and do a club sport. So I think that's really cool. You just have to manage your time, and weekends will become your favorite time to do homework. You know, Saturday mornings are really productive for me, so that's really awesome.
Yeah, and finding your like best time to do homework. I like to do mine in the morning before class, get it done, and then I go to class and I do my stuff in the afternoon. But then by the evening, I'm done. I can take a break and go home. Yeah, and watch Netflix and stuff. So yeah, maybe if I had to average it, 3-4 hours a day, but
yeah,
it depends. Some Saturdays I don't do any homework, so okay, most Saturdays I don't do any homework.
Well, you do need a day to keep your sanity. Yeah, that's what we need. All right. Well, I believe that is our last question. So thank you again for joining us for this little webcast. I hope it was really helpful for you, and we answered a lot of questions and got you really excited about coming to Michigan Tech.
Yeah, thanks for all the great questions.
If you have any other questions, just contact the admissions office or check our website. All right, bye.
Bye.